All right. Hello again, adventurers, and welcome to another exciting episode of Daily December 2022, 2027. Wow, my brain is gone for folks. This is the day 28, I want to say. Yeah. Numbers are hard for folks. So, today, first things first, tonight, 9 p.m. Central is the final episode of my Power Rangers RPG mini Kika campaign. Please show up. We've been having tons and tons and tons of fun. We've actually gotten some fan art for it already. Like, it's been super, super great. And you'll get to see kind of the culmination of effectively the second episode of the series, because the first session kind of covered our first episode kind of feel, and then or the first two sessions ish, and then this will be they're basically fighting their first big monster from Rita, and they're getting cool stuff. So yeah, check it out. That being said, I mentioned before when I did the character build before, that I really enjoyed doing the character build, and I asked for some suggestions as far as other characters you'd like to see me build. One of them was, hey, build another 4E fighter just so we can see how different they can be. But the other one was a suggestion from J. Ignacio Vitali, is how I'm going to assume you pronounce your name. If not, forgive me. But it sounds right to me. And they wanted to see me build a Transformers RPG character. And since my last Power Rangers game is tonight, they both use the Essence 20 system. It just felt like the right thing to do. So today, we're going to be building a Transformer. Now, Jay had a bit more input than the other one, where they actually have a specific descriptor for the character that we're going to build, which is former Decepticon Seeker who changed sides, is now an Autobot and a triple changer. And I'm just checking to see if any of those things are actually roles that I'm already familiar with. So, not to my knowledge. So, unless Seeker is Seeker an Origin? Seeker. Oh yeah, so it is an Origin. Okay, so they've given us a little bit more than I was kind of planning at first, because obviously they've read the book. Or they at least are familiar with some of the things, because they did mention an origin for it. So I'm going to try and do this and see what happens. I've built a couple Transformers characters. I've built a grand total of 4, and I use them in a poorly planned one shot. That didn't really go super well because we only got to play for like maybe an hour. And no one that was playing had ever played before, so I had to teach in a brand new system and give them something to do in like an hour. So it went really poorly. So we'll just see how this stuff works. So first things first, we should probably have something on screen. So how about this? This is the Transformers RPG form fillable character sheet, which I am a big fan of, as you can see here. Form fillable character sheets, for me personally, if you're designing an RPG, the bare minimum you need at launch, in addition to your core book, is you need to have a form fillable character sheet. So much of RPGs, since that which must not be named, that happened in 2020. Um, so much of it involves being online, and a lot of the I almost every single book I own is I have PDFs for. Even the physical books that I own behind me, I have PDFs for I think almost all of them, just because it's significantly easier to take a tablet around a convention than it is to take an entire book set. Um, and form fillable forms are really useful for people like me because me writing stuff on a character sheet is a pain in the ass. Typing it is significantly easier, or copying and pasting is even easier. So yes, I'm a huge fan of form fillables. Um, uh, and this one in particular is nice. Again, I've been playing the Power Rangers RPG on Roll20. The Power Rangers RPG character sheet on Roll20 for new players is actually more confusing than the form fillable one, which I learned after one of my players was having some trouble trying to figure out how rolls worked and everything, because the way that it's displayed on Roll20 just isn't quite as easy to understand as this. So if the Renegade people are listening and you get a chance to revamp the Roll20 one, the absolute best thing you could add to the Roll20 character sheet is this right here. On the Roll20 character sheet, it's a drop down menu. And so when you're just looking at it, your animal handling skill will just say D6 on it, if you that, but it won't show all the other things in there. So rolling with specialization, just for some odd reason, makes less sense. Again, I get it that, well, you just roll every die underneath it. Makes perfect sense, but it just doesn't. In practice, it doesn't work that way. And just physically, again, just giving one of my players the form fillable instead of the online one made it significantly easier to understand. Especially since it'll talk about like ranks and stuff like that, and being able to, like, this shows how many ranks you have in something, whereas a drop down menu you have to go with D6. Okay, well, D6 is the third rank, or a D8 is the fourth rank. So yes, that's the only thing I would say to do that. So anyway, let's actually start building this. So I'm not going to show the actual PDF of the core book because again, it's still relatively new, and I want you guys to go out and buy it so they make more of them. But I'm going to start with creating your character, and the creating your character is chapter 2, which again I've mentioned all the Essence 20 books I think are written slightly backwards, where they don't introduce the Essence system until after you're done building your character. So read chapter 6 first, because that teaches you what the Essence system is, and then come back to chapter 2, and we can start creating the character. Step 1 is character concept. We have a character concept already, so we can move on. This is another one where I will differentiate from their recommendation here, which happens to be just because this is how I always make my characters. They say start by creating your essence, or putting in your essence scores and skill point investments. Because you get 12 essence points and you can split them up between your 4 essence scores, as you guys can see there. However, at this point, I have a character concept, but I haven't chosen their origin, their role, or their influences yet, and all of those are going to affect how the character plays. And just because I have a concept doesn't mean that as I'm choosing influences and origins and roles, that mechanically my concept is going to work exactly the way I'm expecting it to. So even when I build characters in other systems, I'm generally going to pick their class and race or background, whatever you guys have, before I actually start giving out ability score numbers. And that's how it works in like the D&D Beyond character builder. Is you choose racing class before you choose your ability scores. You might even choose background. I can't remember. And most other character builds I've done always start with race class, and then you add those in. Even the 4th edition one did it that way. So that's the way I'm going to do it. I'm going to skip over step 2 right now, and I'm going to go directly to step 3. So selecting influences. So we go to the influences. We have, again, the unique thing about the Essence 20 system is your influences, which is effectively kind of like your background in D&D 5th edition. You can have multiple influences, and they will affect how your character plays pretty significantly, a lot more than current backgrounds do, or even the new 1D&D backgrounds really don't affect your character that much. The feat you get with them does, but the feats themselves are not unique to the backgrounds. So even in 1D&D, backgrounds really don't do that much. Influences do. They have pretty major effects on your characters. So, for a former Decepticon, let's see what we want to do with it. So I'm just looking here. So I'm going to see you change size now, an Autobot and a triple changer. So let's see what we want to do. Former Senator, Gladiator, Inventor, Hunter. Hunter would kind of fit the roguelike role that they suggested in there, where they were kind of built around the idea of like going out and thing. And a seeker, a hunter seeker would kind of make sense. Let's see what other ones we have. Racer, Machinist, Scavenger, Security. That's another one that I think can be a really interesting kind of turncoat. Is someone that and this is actually a really, really common thing in a lot of kind of spy stories and stuff like that, is the idea that you get a guard or something to turncoat for you. So that could be kind of interesting if we went with Security. Especially since, again, that roguelike character... I had a friend of mine that was studying criminal justice in college, and they were going for a criminal justice degree. And in one of her classes, I can't remember which one it was, but it basically kind of focused on collecting evidence and stuff like that. The professor flat out said, I am either training the next great detective, or I am training the next great serial killer, because knowing where to look for things can be beneficial for the detective or the police that are trying to find clues, and it's just as effective for the person that's trying to cover up the crime. A lot of security experts are, former thieves and hackers and the things like that. They even have a term for it in hacking communities. They call it white hat hacking, which is basically hacking for quote unquote the good guys. But so yeah, I think security would actually be a pretty cool thing for a rogue, where you were Decepticon, you were security for Decepticon, and now that you've kind of switched over to the Autobots, you kind of know how to get into places you're not supposed to, because you used to guard them. You used to be the person that made sure people couldn't get in, and you know the things that you can't stop people from doing. So we go in here. We're going to go influences. We're going to go security. And again, just because it's more fun that way, we're going to add a second influence. Transformers. Okay, so let's see what other... I think I kind of liked the Hunter. So security and Hunter I think is pretty interesting. So let's give you security and hunter. So security hunter. Because hunter is our second one, and this is the other thing that I think is kind of fun about the Essence 20 system, is when you if you pick two different influences, your first influence you don't get a hang up from. It's only your second influence. So something that can be really fun is just basically choosing, even if you have two characters that have basically chosen the same two influences, just having them pick different ones to be first and second can really change how their characters play. So the potential hang-ups for the hunter are earth-spoiled, skeptical, or violent, whereas the security is glacial, skeptical, or subordinate. Subordinate I don't think is going to make a whole lot of sense since they are kind of breaking away from the Decepticons. Skeptical, because it was in both of them, I think fits pretty well. And I just want to actually look at what skeptical is. Haha, that's funny. So, skeptical, you're an objective observer, and concepts such as hope and inspiration don't impact you. You gain no benefit when an ally uses lend assistance on you. I think that kind of makes sense perfectly. So that's what we're gonna do for this one. So, hang-ups, you're going to be wow, I can't. Skeptical. I don't know if that's how you spell skeptical, but we're going to pretend it is. All right, so we have our two influences picked. Now, this is one thing I'm less than thrilled about on this character sheet is picking your influence has more than just giving you a hang-up. Your influences give you perks. And there's no real place on here to list your influence perks. Like, you have a perk section here, but perks, there's so many different ones. I kind of would have liked something over here to at least list the name of it to kind of remind me. I mean, here is fine, but then I have to go influence or ifluence. There we go. Influence perks. And the two influence perks that we have are, and this is the other thing that's a little bit annoying to me, is the security perk doesn't have a name. It's just called security perk. In general, because your character sheet is so limited as far as what you can put on it, having a name, like the hang-ups all have names for them. So just having a name that you can put on your character sheet, like for the hang-up skeptical, you can use that to remind you of what skeptical mean. Oh, I don't get a benefit from a lend assist thing. That's real easy. When the perk isn't described or anything, technically all you can do is copy and paste it. And so it's just not as useful for me. So the security perk is when you're surprised, you can take a move action and roll a skill check. So I have to kind of summon that. So surprised equals move and skill check. So it's one influence, and then we'll semicolon it. Move and skill check. And then the other influence we have. Choose a survival specialization. Whether or not you're invested in that specialization, you get an edge on skill tests when that specialization comes into play. Okay. So we need to real quick go to chapter 6 to choose a specialization. Now again, specializations are unique in the fact that you can technically have anything be your specialization. They just have examples here, and so I'm just going to go with one of the sample ones because it's just easier for me. So survival, sample specializations: foraging, camping, specific environment, tracking. I'm going to call tracking for this dude for his specialization. So edge on survival tracking. Okay, so you got that. Works like that one works fine. So you go back here. And I'm going to just make sure we're not missing anything else about... and then there's suggested characteristics and player bonds and stuff like that. I'm not going to worry about that right now. That's all role-playing stuff, and we can play with that later. When I build D&D characters as well, at least in the Player's Handbook, they used to have suggested stuff to kind of help you build out your character. I never use those either. Not that they're not super useful. That's just not how I build characters. So with that done, we've got our influence. Now we're going to choose our origin. So they already chose the origin that they wanted. Jay mentioned a seeker, which is the flying origin. Monolith, Rainmaker, Seeker. There we go. So we're going to start off here. Origin is going to be Seeker. We're going to start this at a level 1 character. And this is an Autobot, but used to be a Decepticon. Alright, so for the Seeker... first thing I get is increase your speed essence by 1. When I had my players making their Power Rangers characters, what I had them do to kind of remember their roll bonuses and their origin bonuses is I just had them go, okay, so my speed goes up by 1. So easy enough. I now know that when I come back and I add my extra 12 points, I'll already know that, okay, I have a 1 in speed there, so I add to it. Again, not quite as user-friendly as it could be. Again, I did have one player that got kind of confused and thought they could only have a total of 12 instead of 16. But this is the way that makes the most sense to me. So this is the way I'm going to do it for right now. Going the way that they recommended the book is slightly easier when dealing with the essence points, but it's not really that hard. You just tell them, by the way, you should have a total of 16, and then it's easy enough. So we've got that. Let's go back to, I'm going to bring this back up so I can see what I'm doing. Let's go back here. And then origin skill. I get either an increase to your acrobatics or your driving. I'm going to say for this one, I like the idea of acrobatics for the kind of rogue aspect to it. So I'm going to increase acrobatics to go with that speed. And then starting health is 3, and then languages. Languages are another one that I know Cybertronian, English, and that's all I'm gonna do. It helps if I type Cybertronian. All right, and then starting health is 3. We got that. And then there's an origin benefit, which is hover. When flying in bot mode, you don't have to move on your turn. So we can put this in the origins note section. So actually, we can just put hover. And again, when you're playing the game, you have your character sheet in front of you. You generally don't have your book open. But something like hover is not something that's going to be incredibly difficult to remember what hover means. So just having that little note of hover helps you to remember, oh yeah, if I'm in bot mode and I'm flying, then I don't have to move. So let's go back here. And then Seeker bot mode. Movement is 30-foot ground, 30-foot aerial, and size is large. And then fine motor... is the same for every single one of them, so I don't really feel the need to put it in. This is the other thing that gets a little bit annoying is the movement thing here is super tiny. So 30 feet, air, ground. as you can see, because of just how it works, and there's no way to add a second line to it, it's really, really hard to read what your speed is. So you have to kind of abbreviate it. So you have 30 feet air ground. I would much rather, if you see down here, your alt mode, you get multiple forms of movement. And you have 2 different alt modes here, which you don't really need for most characters. Having 3 alt modes is something that's unique to just a few, to just one role, to be perfectly honest, or if you take a specific perk. So I would much rather see at least like multiple lines of movement here, if not like the full like 2 different boxes of movement up here, because a lot of bots get multiple movement types, and this just doesn't give you enough space to put the actual movement speed plus where it can move. So that's another thing I'm not super thrilled about this, but hey, worse things have happened. So we go back here. So we've got that, and then the alt mode. Oh, and then the size is large. I don't know if I put my size in here somewhere. Do we list size somewhere? Not really, no. We can put here size large for the description. But that's another thing that would be really, really simple to just put in somewhere, a size box. Again, especially since influences and hangups are so large and you don't really need them. And then you have 5 slots for attacks here, which again are not super useful, especially since you have this whole section here for hard points, and your hard point has an attack section. So this could be used to give you extra movement places. This could be used for a lot of other things. So again, it's a bad character sheet. There are improvements that could be made though. And having a size section somewhere in the top here would make sense. So yes, moving on. So you've got that, and then the Seeker alt mode is 60 foot air. So origin name is Seeker. Size, see here they have it, and this is long. Movement 60 feet. Air. See, and this is the perfect size to list it, but again, my bot mode, my alt mode only has 1 movement type, whereas my bot mode has 2, and yet they've given me 2 slots here for my alternate mode and no slots here for it. So, slightly annoying. Worse things have happened. Moving on. Crew is 2, 0 fire points. And then they have a special attack, Flyby. So I do like to put the special attack in. So we can just call this Flyby. I'm going to put this over here despite the fact there's a lot. I can't read it that way. Okay, so we'll do this another way. Scrolling. Let's do fit width. Much better. So now I can actually read it on the other one. So Flyby. Range is reach. That is tiny. Effects is 1 blunt. Trip. And then we can just put driving. Okay, so I have the special attack for my alt mode there. You can put it here too. I just, since it's already alt mode stuff there, I'll put it there. Crew is 2. And again, they don't have a place here for fire points either, so I'm just going to put in 0 fire points. If you're wondering what fire points are, they're basically if you have a crew, as in crew is basically how many humans can ride inside of you when you're in your vehicle mode. So if the Seeker, 2 humans could ride inside of them. However, because it's a plane, they can't like lean out the window and shoot, and that's what fire points are. Is how many places could someone that's riding you actually attack from. And so that's why it has 0 fire points, because it's a plane. You don't like crack the canopy and shoot out of it. That would be bad. Most planes are pressurized. So yeah, we've got that. Moving on. What do we need next? Anything else that we have here? Nope. That is everything. So going back to character creation real quick. See what we do next. I think we choose our role next. So select an origin, and then select a role. So roles, we were not given a specific role to choose, but we were given that kind of rogue direction towards it. So scout. Did they specifically say scout? Yes, they did mention scout. So I guess we are. At this point, I'm not even really building a character. I'm just doing what they told me to. So for someone, Jay specifically said, I don't have the Transformers core book yet. But they gave us they suggested influence due to they were former Decepticon. They gave us our origin and they gave us our role. So for someone that doesn't have the book, you know the book pretty well. So yeah, we're gonna go with Scout. So choosing Scout, you get Let's see what we get. So for the Allspark, we don't need to worry about that. Deal with that in a second. Okay, so increase your speed essence and social essence by 1 each. So speed goes up by 1, that brings us to 2. Social goes up by 1. And then roll skills. So alertness, deception. If I remember correctly, forward observation. So we can actually, I think I'm going to go with alertness, because alertness technically counts, because they're a scout, alertness technically counts as a social skill for them. So I'm going to get training in alertness for my social. And then I'm going to get, what was the other one I got? And then I need something for speed. And I think I'm going to take the initiative for speed, because I don't like rolling initiative with a snag. So I tend to like having at least some training in initiative. So there we go. So we've got speed essence and social essence by 1 each. Did I? Hamana. I'm going to go back to character creation real quick. Because I feel like I'm missing something. Because I'm supposed to have a total of 16. 12 essence points. Maybe I'm only supposed to have 15. Select origin, select a role, describe your character. Okay. Sorry, because in Power Rangers, I remember correctly, you had a total of 16. But that was because your role gave you a +2 in something and a +1 in something, and then your origin gave you a +1 in something. In this, I only have 3 instead of 4. So if I had 12 to that, I'm only going to have a 15 instead of a 16. I'm wondering if that's just a Transformers thing, or if I've missed something somewhere. You are not helping me, book. Skill rolls, strength speed, using general perks, equipment, exploration, combat, blah, 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 blah. It should be in the creating a character section. I don't know why it's not here. I guess they only get 15. If anyone from Renegade is watching this and I've screwed something up, let me know in the comments down below. But I guess they only get 15. Hold please, because I know I'm gonna just very quickly. That. There we go. The hell was that about? Alright. Sorry, guys. Yeah, in Power Rangers you get a +2 and a +1. In Transformers you only get a 1 and a 1. So that's interesting. Is that all? Maybe it's just the scout roll? Let's see. Nope, it's 1 and 1 for everyone else. That's weird. All right, so anyway, sorry. Because I'm a little more familiar with Power Rangers than I am with this, I went on a little bit of a tangent there. Let's continue going so I can get this character done before this turns into a 4-hour-long thing. All right, so we are a scout. So, scout. Now we're going to do perks. So for the Allspark is, and again, this is where I get a little bit annoyed that there's no. You are really, really limited in the amount of information you can put in the character sheet here. If you look at something like a D&D 5th edition character sheet, there are really large sections where you can put your feats and stuff like that, and this one is just really, really tiny. And the gear, I have never used more than maybe 2 lines of gear. I will always, for a level 1 character, I will always fill up the perks with a lot. And then background bonds is another one that I very rarely use a whole lot of. And then origin notes doesn't really have anything other than hover in it. I mean, yeah, you can kind of describe your alt mode here if you want, but that could just as easily be on a different page that you don't need to use in the middle of running. Like, knowing what you look like is not really going to affect the game much, but being able to know what perks you have available to you is, and it's an extremely important part of playing the game. So yeah, so now we're going to go roll. So the first one is for the Allspark. And I'm just going to put the names here because, again, putting all the details, I don't have the ability to put all the details here. It would never work. And then, and again, this is just meant to remind me while I'm playing that I have these options. So disappear. That's the Cybertronian perk for this roll, which is basically you can burn an Energon point to turn invisible until the end of your turn, which is nice. The training we don't need to worry about. Equipment training we can deal with later. Focus we'll choose in just a second here, but we do want to put in ally awareness and then forward observation. I'll say when I built character sheets for the one shot. I built them a character sheet, and then I had a separate Word document where I actually explained what all this stuff meant. So, yeah, that generally tends to be how I introduce new players. Even on D&D, I will have their character sheet, and then things that need explanation, I will have a separate document that I send to them going, by the way, this is how key points work, or, this is what your fighting style means, stuff like that, to make things easier. So we have all that, and I believe that is everything. Oh, and then keen sensors. Can't forget keen sensors. Which just is... So here's another thing. You have role perks, and then you also have general perks. So 3 different types of perks that all have to fit into this little box. And the rest of the stuff really isn't that essential. I mean, background bonds are a little bit essential because they can influence decisions. But again, there are better places as you could put this. Generally, what I tend to see on most character sheets similar to this is role-playing stuff is generally put on its own sheet. So things like your background bonds, your motivations, things like that, has its own sheet. In addition, it'll have a little section where you can put your background. It'll have a section where you can put a picture or put your character description there. And that, I would kind of prefer that to get rid of background bonds, and gear as well, and just give me more area that I can put perks in. Because for a level 1 character, you can see I've already filled this box up. And this is a level 1 character. You are going to be getting a bunch more perks as you level up, and you're never going to be able to keep just the names of them here. Like for keen sensors, all it does, it gives you the acute sense general perk. But you get a general perk, I think, every 4 levels or something like that. You get new role perks every level. This is going to be nonsense after about level 3 or 4. And again, your gear, most of your gear can fit into a hardpoint. Like most of the gear you're going to list here, you're going to also list in your hardpoints. So this is redundancy. And again, background bonds we're not going to use that much in the middle of combat. Let's put it that way. In the middle of combat, I'm not going to care about my background bonds. I am going to care about my perks and my various weapons. So, moving on. So that is our role all the way except for our focus. And this is something I really like about the Transformers RPG over the Power Rangers RPG, just because this is a little bit more traditional in the idea that Power Rangers, all of your Black Rangers are going to effectively be the same until level 4, because there's no real way to customize the role, other than obviously your origin and your influences will change things. But this allows you to choose a subclass, which I like. Which means technically you can have 2 different scouts that play differently. Whereas in Power Rangers, it actually says in the rules you're not supposed to have 2 of the same color on the same team because it will break the morphing grid. So yeah. So this one, there's 2 different scout focus options. So we can go with the Outrider, which is basically just someone that goes in and out really fast. They're the hypermobility style one. Or the Prowler, which is a little bit closer to the kind of rogue. Oh, and that's where it is. Okay, I understand now. You get your other essence score from your subclass, from your focus. Now I feel dumb. I'm like, I know it's supposed to be 16. I remember that number. This is where you get it from. So because they wanted them to be kind of roguelike, I think I like going for the Prowler. So here, because it's part of their origin, you can go Prowler. Seeker Prowler. Except I don't like how that feels saying it. So I'm going to call them a Prowler. Or no, not Seeker. It goes here. It is a Prowler Scout. I like having the subclass because it just feels better to say it that way. And then for role perks, there's also focus perks. So this gives me, what is it? I think it's Stunning Surprise. There we go. So Stunning Surprise. Which is basically if you attack someone and they're not aware of you, you get you stun them in addition to whatever else you do, which is kind of cool. I like that. So you've got all that stuff there. Now, choosing your focus also gives you an essence increase and a focus skill. So speed increase goes up again. So now we're at a 3 for speed. And finesse, infiltrating, or targeting. I think I'm going to go targeting for this one. But I think finesse is going to be something kind of useful for this guy too. So we have everything for the role picked out now, and all we need to do is assign our essence skills, which normally in most RPGs, when you've got your race, class, background, and basically figured out, and your attributes figured out, you're effectively done. You might have to choose spells or something like that, but for the most part, it's done. This 100% is not like that. And that's, Jay specifically asked me what I found was so interesting about this. Again, my expectation what I found so different about this, my expectation was when I choose my essence scores and finalize that, and get my skills and everything picked out, then I'm basically done with character creation. Because that's how it is in most other RPGs. You're not. The interesting thing about the Essence 20 system is the weapons you choose will massively change how you play your character. Because they give you different options. They're almost kind of similar to your at-will powers that you pick with the 4th edition, because they give you additional things that you can do, and they're going to change how you play the character, which I really, really like. And as you level up and as you play, you can upgrade these weapons and kind of specialize them and give yourself even more things you can do. So unlike most RPGs where choosing your equipment is basically, for the most part, it's just going to be what kind of damage do you do and what damage die do you use. And it's totally not that in the Essence 20 system in general. It's much more important, especially when you start having to deal with integrated hardpoints and stuff like that, because that massively changes things as well, because that changes how you can do things in your alt mode. So, yeah. So, let's go ahead and add stuff. We do need to have at least 1 in everything. So we start out with 12. This is going to bring us to 11 and 10. And this is the way that I tend to do it, is I basically count down as I add them, because it's easiest in my brain to remember that. So for this particular character, I like the idea of them being really fast. So I think I'm going to double this up to 6. So that takes another 3 off. I've got 7 more. Since alertness is a social skill or a smart skill for them, I think giving them a little bit more social. I like the idea of a kind of very streetwise rogue type character. So I'm going to put another 3 in here. So that brings us down to 4. So we've got 4 more points left. And so I think for a rogue, and especially for someone in security, alertness is always going to be very important. But also a Decepticon, I mean, it's in the name. They're going to be able to lie a little bit, especially if they're a turncoat. They would have had to have lied to get out of there. And then streetwise just makes sense for a rogue style character. So I think I'm even going to go a little bit higher in social and put a 5 there. For smarts, I'm actually fine kind of lowballing smarts and letting them just kind of be a little bit dumb. And then for strength, we should put at least a little bit into strength. So I've got 3 left. Let's put 2 into strength, and then I'm going to do 1 more into speed, because I like speed. So if we add everything together, we should have a grand total of 16. So 7, 5 is to 12, plus 1 is 13, plus 4 is 16. So we've done it right. We have our 16 here. And then we just need to start picking what skills or specializations we're going to do. For me, for this particular character, again, being a formal Decepticon, giving them 2 ranks in intimidation, I think makes a lot of sense, because that is an extremely common thing in any organization that one of their kind of defining features is an idea of selfishness. My little rant on the alignment grid, lawful versus chaotic is generally really easy for people to understand, but good versus evil is very difficult, because people think, well, good people do good things and evil people do evil things. Well, both good and evil are subjective terms. What some people might consider good, another person might consider evil, depending on how Machiavellian you are. So a better way to look at good versus evil is a good character will generally make selfless decisions, meaning they will think about what is best for everyone, whereas an evil character will generally make self-ish decisions, meaning they are mostly going to be self-motivated. What is going to give them the best benefit? And there are a lot of organizations that are built around organizations that you see in fiction and in real life that are built around the idea of, I'm joining this because it is best for me, and everybody in there is very self-motivated, and they're and just because you are self-motivated does not mean that you can't work with other people. Anyone with a brain can figure out that having multiple people to be able to help you is a benefit in a lot of different situations. So if you want to succeed, you need to work with other people. It always blows my mind when we have people that think playing an evil character means they have to always betray people. No, that's a remarkably dumb thing. And your evil character will never make it past level 2. No, just because you're self-motivated doesn't mean you can't work with other people. It means whenever you are working with other people, there has to be a benefit for you in it. And sometimes that benefit for you is you're not dead, and that's a great benefit. So in a situation where everything is very self-motivated and it has to be, well, what's in it for me, being intimidating is a really, really useful skill, because you can make that argument very easily. Well, what's in it for me? I won't kill you today. How does that sound? Do you want to be alive tomorrow? Well, then maybe you need to do what I tell you to do. And that will motivate a self-motivated character. And it doesn't even have to be the threat of death. It can just be the threat of, listen, if you don't want to help me, then I am going to do this bad thing. I'm going to make you look bad in front of these other people. I'm going to do this. All of those are forms of intimidation. And so coming from the Decepticons, to me, it makes a ton of sense that they would have a pretty decent intimidation. And I like the idea that they weren't an incredibly strong person, and most of their strength went towards just making themselves look bigger. And I'd like to get a specialization in intimidation, because it just makes sense to me. So I'm going to open up the book again and just look. That was totally the wrong thing. Oh, because I have it up here. I'm going to go for... I want to see what these sample specializations for intimidation are. I just want to see what they have here. Where are you, intimidation? There we go. So distract, frighten, taunt. So for this character, because they are security, I think the idea of frighten makes the most sense. Because if you've ever dealt with come on, there we go. If you've ever dealt with someone in a security position, one of the things you master very, very quickly is the ability to just kind of instill fear in people. It's significantly more important when you're in a security role to be intimidating and frightening than it is for you to be competent, to be perfectly honest. People believing that you have more power and authority than you actually do is significantly more effective in deterring crime or deterring whatever you're protecting against than having actual authority. And anyone that's worked security, or my particular experience in this is in loss prevention, because that was one of the things that I had to deal with when I was a manager. And yeah, loss prevention in general is convincing potential thieves that it's just not worth it. The payoff is not going to be worth the amount of effort required to get it. And that's what loss prevention is. And a lot of times, security theater is all it takes. Things like alarms and stuff like that on laptops, like all the laptops that I used to sell, we had display models of. All of them were alarmed, and had bars and things like that on them so that you couldn't get them away. And if you did get one of those things off, it made the most ear-piercing beeping sound ever. It was remarkably unpleasant. So, I'll let you know right now, that alarm never stopped anyone from stealing anything. But knowing the alarm was there was generally enough to make a lot of people reconsider it, simply because as soon as the alarm comes off, everybody's looking at you, and the whole point of stealing something is to not be the center of attention. So yeah, anyway, so that's my little justification for frighten. So going to speed, again, we're already trained in targeting. We have some training in initiative, and we have some acrobatics training. We have 7, and we already have 1, 2, 3. So we have 4 other points that we can put somewhere in here. I like the idea of having something in driving, because that's how you do your alt form. So we definitely want that. And then, as much as I'm a big fan of, in first-person shooters, I play melee characters. Just because I find it hilarious when everyone else is shooting AK-47s and stuff like that, I'm going to go up and just punch them in the face. So normally what I would do is I would put a bunch of points into finesse and then get a specialization in there. But I'm not going to do that. We still have 3 more points. So I'm going to put 2 points into targeting. So I can see that. And again, technically you can just fill 1 bubble if you want, because that works perfectly well. But again, from a visual perspective, it's really easy to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and be able to know. And then for targeting, I want a specialization, because this is going to be my ability to attack, and it's nice to have a specialization in attacks at level 1. So I'm going to go to speed here and look for targeting. Vehicular weaponry, weapon classification, rifles are great, or weapon traits. I'm going to go to the weapon section real quick to just look at, or it's the equipment section, just to look at the various traits that you can have, just so I can get an idea of what it is. Size, classifications. Sorry, I'm reading through different other things. So, just because I can, I'm going to have a specialization in laser weapons. And my thought process behind this, for a level 1 character, this may not be the most useful thing in the world, but my thought process behind this, because they are a scout, they're really good at kind of being roguish and stuff like that. Laser weapons, and this is where equipment will change how you play. Laser weapons have an alternate effect just for doing laser damage. Laser is technically an element, it's a damage type. So I'm not 100% certain I can specialize in lasers, but I like it, so I'm going to. And again, you can't stop me. So laser weapons gain stun 1 as an alternative effect and can be used to spot targets as an alternative effect. So stun 1, you can stun a target with a laser gun, or spotting is effectively aiding an ally in hitting them. Basically, you're painting the target like you would with an actual laser in actual, military combat. Painting targets for, laser guided missiles and stuff like that is something that troops do now. And so I just like the idea that this security hunter is good with weapons that have an automatic stun capability. And is also good at marking targets for something bigger than them to take out, which are kind of the two different ways a bounty hunter is going to work. You're dead or alive. Your alive one, they're going to use the stun setting. Your dead one, they may need to team up with someone else and have them send a missile down this guy's, tailpipe or something. So I like that. I think it's cool. So smarts, despite the fact that we have alertness here, alertness again, due to forward observation is the role perk that gives it that. Alertness actually counts as a social skill. So we still get one thing in smarts that we can get trained in. And I think survival makes the most sense because of the hunter. I think, wasn't hunter supposed to, what was it? So, oh yeah, and then edge on survival tracking. So if we ever do take a specialization in tracking, we would have an edge on it in addition to it being specialized. But I think we should at least have something in survival for smarts. And then for social, deception, because it says 5, we only have 4 because one of them is alertness. Deception, we're totally taking a 2 in. So we've got 2 more. I think alertness we should pump up. So again, that counts as social. So we get 1 more, and we need a streetwise. We got to have a streetwise for this guy. So we've got everything there. We can also go ahead and do this for armor. Rolls. Where are you? Scout. Training, roll skills, armor. You trade in limited armor upgrades. So, if I remember correctly, armor is effectively done with upgrades, meaning when you first start out, you're not generally going to have a lot. So, yeah, so this is the other thing that's kind of unique about Essence 20 is for equipment, you have this thing at the beginning of every mission called assignment and requisition, which is basically standard issue. Every single Autobot is going to have a blaster, and a close combat, helps if I spell it right, blade or bludgeon. I'm going to give him a blade. And a rifle or a shotgun. We're going to go rifle for this particular one because they're going to be a little bit out. And then you get either you get 2 of either frag or concussion grenades, or a mixture of one of each. I'm going to go concussion grenades. So concussion grenade 2. So I got that. And I can't spell concussion. Guys, I failed every spelling test I ever took until they stopped testing for it. I have never been good at spelling. So we've got that. So, and then you can also have like some roles have what's called qualified equipment, which I don't think, I'm gonna check real quick. I don't think the scout is actually qualified in anything. They're just trained. Equipment, armor guard praise. You're trained in silent weapons. Any armor and weapons you are trained in, as well as all gear. You access any equipment you are qualified in without requesting it. So, the scout is only trained in silent weapons, but not qualified in them. So they don't get them automatically. But it does mean that you can requisition. So let's start playing around with equipment, because again, this is the thing that again I was completely not expecting. So we're almost never going to use our close combat blade, but we might as well put it in here. Close combat blade, range, reach, hard point. This is an external hard point. Traits. Sharp and silent. And attack is finesse. Just because we're better in finesse than we are in... oh, I totally put frighten in the wrong spot. So put frighten there. Get rid of that because it's not might. It's under intimidation. And then the effect of it is 1 sharp damage, no alternate effect. So we got that. Let's get the blaster in here. Blaster. So it is 2580. We're also going to call this external. Trait is ballistic. It is a targeting. And it does 1 sharp damage with no alternate effect. Rifle. Shoots a lot more. So rifle is 100, 400. We're going to also call this external for right now. We'll deal with internal hard points or integrated hard points in a second. Then this is ballistic sniper, and then targeting. Targeting and 1 sharp damage with no alternative effects. And then concussion grenades. Range 2050. External. This is traits. Consumable. It uses I can't remember what throwing things. We'll deal with that later. I think it's might is supposed to be for throwing, so. And then it is effects 1 stun damage, blast 10. So we've got that. Okay, cool. So we've got all those things, and that's perfectly fine, and that's generally what we're going to be dealing with. However, this is where things start to get really interesting because they have basically the ability to upgrade weapons, which is what starts making things really, really interesting and fun. Technically, you can't, there are kind of pre-built weapons, but you have all these different upgrades. So weapons can be upgraded during equipment requisition. These upgrades can be minor modifications like a light attachment or a scary paint job, or completely change the weapon's function, like by adding an electromagnetic pulse generator or building the weapon out of rare material that allows it to be used with twice the efficiency. So the upgrades, basically, if you're going to be upgrading a weapon, sorry, I'm rereading things right now because this is complicated. Reinforcing hard points. Assigning mission. Select mission critical items, your integrated hardpoint and personal gear, your qualified equipment. Issued a requisition budget. More successful returns come, the greater equipment you are assigned. Assume you have a budget equal to 3 attempts per PC. So the way requisitioning works is depending on the weapon and the upgrade on it. So if you have like a standard weapon with like a limited upgrade on it, it counts as limited, and you have to make a specific roll to be able to get it. And I'm not seeing specific result to the equipment's availability, difficulty. Where's the availability difficulty? There we go. So standard has a difficulty of 0, limited difficulty of 10, restricted difficulty of 15. So effectively, the to upgrade something or that, you look on this little table that shows you where it would be as far as limited, restricted, prototypical, stuff like that, and then you have to make a roll for to see if you are able to get it or not. So what we're going to do to kind of finish off this character to make them something is we're going to customize. Let's customize the blaster, since the blaster is already standard, and we're going to go to upgrades. Non-lethal, scary, scope, absolute silencer. So we can turn the blaster into a silence by absolute silencer, and that would take one of our requisition things. Because an absolute silencer is a standard weapon upgrade, and the blaster is a standard upgrade, there's nothing we really need to do to make the roll. The difficulty of it is a 0. So this is something that technically should be happening on the requisition, because we're building this character, I like, as part of building the character and kind of creating them, is creating a custom weapon of some sort. So what we're going to do is we're going to change this from blaster. We're going to call this, we're going to name it something cool. And we're just going to keep it in there, blaster. But we're going to call this, what are we going to call it? Something interesting, something fun. I got to check how long I've been doing this. Oh, it's only an hour long to build a character. It's not hard at all. It normally doesn't take this long to build a character. I'm just doing it in 7 different parts. And I haven't built a Transformers character in like 4 months. So, let's call it... let's call it the Nightingale. That's not how you spell Nightingale? There we go. We're gonna call it the Nightingale. This is our customized weapon, and one of the things we're gonna add to it is we're just going to add on silent. So now it doesn't make sound. And the other thing that we want to add to it is we want to give it the laser type. And so I just have to see surround, frigid, galvanized, electromagnetic, locked, microtech weapon. I could have sworn there's a thing that lets you add the laser trait. Oh, Fido automated. This would be a lot easier if I had thought about this faster or before I started doing this, but whatever. Laser beam. So laser beam is the trait. It is a restricted weapon upgrade. So we go back here. We see this is still, because it's standard, and standard keeps it as standard. So standard and restricted. Standard with restricted is a restricted. So we're going to modify this a second time to give the Nightingale exactly what we want. So this is technically our second of our three requisitions. And normally a restricted would be a 15 difficulty. And what do I roll for that? They're not limits. Okay, for example, exercising restricted fire requires a targeting skill test. So because I'm trained in targeting, this would be a targeting skill test. Normally you'd have to roll for this. I'm not going to, just because this is something that you can do. So we're going to put in laser, which also means alternate effect, 1 stun, or what was the other thing that laser did? Give me a second here. It has a name. And then 1 stun or spot. And I separate them with a semicolon to know that they're semicolon, come on. So I know that they're different alternate effects. You can't do both. So, there we go. So now we have the Nightingale. And just for even more fun, we're going to make the Nightingale one of your integrated. Let's leave the Nightingale as an external. Part of your character you should have integrated hardpoints. Integrated are just stuff that are built into your chassis itself. So that's the last thing we're going to do. Your hardpoints are located wherever. When you install a weapon to a hardpoint, use side weather is hidden in alt mode. Blah 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 blah. Lower the brown requirement. However you suffer. So we're supposed to have 2 integrated. I'm gonna make the just for fun, I'm gonna make the close combat blade is gonna be integrated. So integrated means it's built in. It also means that you technically can use it. You can use it in vehicle mode. So this is effectively a wing blade we're going to have. And then we're also going to call, just to make things simple right now, we're also going to have the rifle be integrated. So in plane form, or in the alternate form, when they're effectively a plane, they have a single rifle that's kind of bottom mounted. That's kind of, we'll make that one hidden too. So we can do it this way. Hidden. So basically when they transform into a plane, there is a single gun that they can, that's hidden when they're there, but they can extend it as a free action, and then they have that, and then their wings themselves are sharp. So they can actually cut people as they fly up past them using their close combat blade. And that means when you go into bot mode, you'll effectively have the rifle somewhere, like maybe it's attached to your arm, maybe it's on your back. For this particular character, I think it would make the most sense if their integrated rifle was not only on their back, but kind of like hidden when they were in bot mode as well. I don't think that's how it's supposed to work, but that's how I'm going to say it works right now. And so they kind of activate it when they need to snipe, or they always have their Nightingale, which is external, which just means you hold it in your hand. And so they take out their Nightingale for most stuff, but every so often they get their rifle. Now, it would make more sense to put the laser on the rifle because it has a significantly longer range, but I just like the idea that they have this special blaster that they use, that they can use to stun, and they can use to paint targets from up to 80 feet away. And you can eventually upgrade it later on to get better stuff for it and things like that. So anyway, so for the most part, we have the character here. And as you can see, I didn't use any of this attack stuff because all my hard points already have all the information I need to make the attack. So this is another thing where I would say get rid of this attack section and give us more section for this. Give us something for our size in here. Give us more movement sections. Like this whole thing here just really isn't that useful when we have the hard point section here. Anyway, so yeah, this is, we should name them. What do we want to call? What's a good Transformers in a name for a character? Switch sides. Let's see. We can call them. I like the idea of Shadow Chaser. Shadow Chaser, I like. The idea, because again, Shadow gives that aspect of stealth and things like that. Their plane form would probably be some sort of stealth fighter style thing. And then the Chaser aspect fits into the Hunter, and it also kind of fits into the kind of turncoat idea of them, of where they're chasing wherever they think is going to be their best, their best place. So I like all of that. All that. So yeah, this is our Transformer. And again, this is a level 1 Transformer. You can already do some pretty interesting things. Again, just these 2 upgrades that we added to their standard issue blaster have given us something that's really interesting, where it's silent, so they don't have to worry, and they're trained in it, so they can always requisition it. And the laser aspect gives them the ability to stun or be lethal, and they can use it to spot as well. So just those 2 things are massively going to change how you play the Kiki character. And then your integrated and external hardpoints are another thing that are going to change how you play the Kiki character. And I've never really seen that in an RPG before, where your equipment is as influential in your play style as your class or your role choice and things like that. Like, even if we think about the fighters that we made in 4th edition, they did have certain, because they were a fighter, there were certain powers that they got that would have different effects if you were using a different weapon. But even that wasn't anywhere near as kind of changing as just adding the laser feature to the Nightingale gives you the ability to stun, which is a very different play style, and is remarkably useful. So yeah. Anyway, that is going to be all for me today. As always, remember tonight. Wow, my brain is just gone, guys. I'm just so sorry. Remember tonight, running Power Rangers. Hopefully by then I will have a brain again. But twitch.tv/TrainerJody. Check it out. It's our last episode. We've been having a ton of fun. Our Power Rangers team is super, super cool. And you know what? Just for kicks, because we don't have a name yet, we will name the team tonight. So if you want to know which flavor of Power Rangers we're going to name the team tonight live. So, that being said, that's all for me today. I'll see you guys next time. All right? Bye-bye.